It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman, and this show is brought to you by Audible.com, audibletrial.com/Opperman Report. You go there, you sign up for free. You can sign up for free tonight. You can get yourself a free audio book tonight. You can start signing up and getting free audio books right this very minute, right as we speak. Okay, tonight we have with us a very interesting guy. His name is Larry Hillman. He goes by the name Larry the Contractor Guy. And we're going to be discussing Hitler, the occult, Crowley. I hope we can squeeze in some of these other topics. I've been listening to them all day long today. In fact, I'm sick of hearing them, to tell you the truth. I've been listening to him so much. I've heard his voice all day long. But I'm hoping we can squeeze in some stuff about the Beatles, too. But he was just telling me before the show that he has a connection of Hitler and the occult to 9/11 and Nazism. So, Larry, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
I didn't realize you heard me all day long.
Well, it was a 30-part series I was listening to. So you start listening.
I mean, you listen to several.
Oh, yeah. I spent a good 5 or 6 hours. Playing in the background. I wasn't taking notes. It's good stuff. Very good information. So tell the audience about yourself. Who is Larry Hillman? You like to be called Larry the Contractor Guy.
Well, I was born and raised in a small town in southeast Texas called Highlands, and it's about 20 miles from downtown Houston. I had pretty normal upbringing, and when I graduated from high school in '67, I went to school at the University of Texas in Austin, and eventually I wound up getting a Bachelor of Arts with a concentration in government and a minor in history. I kind of banged around for a while. I thought about becoming a lawyer, but that didn't work out. And I eventually went back to school and got some postgraduate work done, got a teaching certificate, and I taught for a little while, but that didn't work out for me either. And eventually I wound up working in manufacturing. And the majority of the time in manufacturing, I was a technician. And also at one point, I functioned as a quality engineer. So that's pretty much my background as far as work history and everything. I got involved with the study and research on the Nazis or Third Reich, sort of indirectly. I had an uncle that I was very fond of. His name was Vernon Blackwell. He's passed away now, but he was in a lot of combat in the Second World War, and I think I was probably one of the very few people he ever talked about the war with. I guess he didn't see any harm talking to a kid about it, because I just wanted to know about what had happened. And one thing he made me aware of, he said that the regular German army, the soldiers were pretty much like American soldiers, not that big a difference. But, they had to kill them, but they were trying to kill each other, but he didn't have a real extreme hatred for them. But he hated the Waffen-SS. They had to fight them. He was a tanker. And he was a tank commander on a Sherman tank, and they go across France into Germany, and he survived. And he was talking about some of the atrocities that the Waffen-SS had committed. And so he really deeply hated them. He told me he thought they were satanic. And that kind of started my mind, wheels started going, because I was raised in a fundamentalist Christian home, and I could see the Nazis as satanic, so at that point, it made me want to know more and more about them. And I just, over the years, I did study on them and learned everything that I could.
Okay. And because you hear a lot about that, like on the History Channel and stuff like that, that the Nazis were satanic. So what did you come up with?
Well, I think the secret societies, which they were, the higher ups were in, were very occult secret societies, and I think they were Luciferian. There's definitely evidence about Luciferian activity. By that, I mean, these people believe that there are two eternal gods. One good God, which is Satan, or in their case, Lucifer, and the bad, evil God, which is Jehovah, whom you and I believe in as being the creator of the universe. These people have a very twisted religious belief system, which is diametrically opposed to Christianity. And that was something that I found, very interesting. And we'll talk about that some if you like.
Yeah, give me an idea, because you hear so many people talking about that Hitler was Christian.
Hitler was a Christian?
Yeah, yeah.
No. Hitler was raised in the Roman Catholic Church, but he renounced that, I think, probably in his late teens, early 20s. I don't think he even had any real strong belief in anything, except he kind of got involved with the occult. And in that case, he got involved with forces that were probably a lot different than he even imagined. I can go to Unholy Alliance by Peter Levenda. It's an excellent book. And in it, he describes Nazism as an evil cult that still exists today. So we will trace the history of a cult so lethal, so sensationalistic, tales of satanic killers hacking women to death in suburban cellars can come close to matching the horror or the evil. A cult that still exists to this day. Its activities aided, abetted, and protected a variety of the world's governments. And to do that, we must begin with a scene of utter chaos, with the breakdown of civilization, with rooftop snipers and roving gangs with guns, with terror and madness, with mystical diagrams and pagan rituals, and ruined castles with a vision of hell itself. We must begin with Munich in 1918. What he's talking about is the Thule Society, which was fighting against the communists in Munich in 1918, right after the war ended, the First World War. And he describes it. The city is in turmoil. The Kaiser's Republicans collapsed with the defeat of Germany in the First World War, and the whole country is up for grabs. It appears as if Germany is about to fall apart into the warring city-states from which it has been assembled nearly 50 years ago. The victorious Allies are demanding enormous concessions from Germany. The Russian Revolution has been in full swing for a year, and German soldiers returning from the front are being cajoled into helping midwife the same type of communist regime amid the ashes of the Second Reich. Within 48 hours, there is a meeting of the Thule Gesellschaft. The Thule, a mystical society based in part on the theosophical writings of Guido von List and Liebenfels, which is to say an amalgam of Eastern religion, theosophy, anti-Semitism, Grail romance, runic mystification, and Nordic paganism, meets every Saturday in spacious rooms at the elegant Four Seasons Hotel in Munich. There are roughly 250 members of the Thule in Munich, and over 1,500 in Bavaria. On that day, November 9, a bizarre individual, an occultist, an initiate of the Eastern mysteries in Turkey, as well as Freemasonry, and the leader and founder of the Thule, the self-styled Baron Rudolf von Sabbatendorf, makes an impassioned plea to the assembled cultists for armed resistance to the Reds. The Thule cultists, whose symbol is a long dagger superimposed over a swastika, need no encouragement. They begin stockpiling weapons in secret supply dumps in and around Munich, anticipating a counterstrike against the new Socialist Republic. They make advances with other nationalist groups such as the Pan-Germans under editor Julius Lehmann. The German School Bund, the Hammer Bund, and an organized resistance is born. When the dust settles on May 3rd, the communists have been defeated in Munich, politically and militarily. Hundreds of people, including many innocent civilians, have been senselessly slaughtered in the streets and homes by the crusading whites with their swastika banners. But there will be no socialist or communist government in Germany until after World War II. Over 25 years later, and even then, it will rule over half the country, and it will take its orders from Germany's most despised enemy, the Soviet Union. Even Germany's own right wing is divided into two camps: those in favor of restoring the monarchy and separating Bavaria from the rest of Germany, and those in favor of a unified greater German Reich, without a monarch, but with a leader with a vision, a German Messiah, a Führer. Where is that Führer to be found? Unwittingly, the Thule Gesellschaft provides the answer. Meeting an expensive Four Seasons hotel, the leading industrialists and aristocracy today, along with the generous helping of local police and military officials, are designing a two-pronged strategy for political activism. The Thule Society will do the organizing, will make the right connections among society figures, the wealthy capitalists, the intelligentsia. They will stockpile weapons. They will organize units of the Free Corps, particularly the Ehrhard Brigade, which will become an official unit of Germany's Navy as the Ehrhard Naval Brigade, and the Freikorps. But another arm of Thule has also begun recruiting, not among Munich's beautiful people, the rich and the powerful, but among the working people, the lower and middle-class citizens who have been hit hardest by the civil wars, the enormous rates of inflation, the chaos and confusion. There will be no overt involvement of the Thule Society in this group, which is to be called instead the German Workers' Party. Well, what happened at that point, once they got the German Workers' Party going, Hitler was an army spy. It was in 1919. He had stayed in the army and was put into a unit where he was a political spy. And he went to check out the German Workers' Party, and he wound up becoming a member and eventually the leader of that party. And that's pretty much how the Nazi Party got started. It got started with people who were believing in a occult philosophy, really a racist philosophy. And the person who was most responsible for putting him on that path, the writings and philosophy that was probably the most influential on Hitler, were the writings of Madame, Helena Petrovna Blavatsky. Blavatsky was the author of two books. One, Isis Unveiled, which isn't that important to what we're talking about tonight. And the second one was The Secret Doctrine. And it says, same author here, Lavinda, Blavatsky provided a much anticipated antidote to Darwin, even as she was brazenly appropriating and reversing his theory of evolution. As bizarre as her theories appear today, they were actually quite brilliant for her time. Based on an idiosyncratic selection of various Asian scriptures, including a few she made up herself, the Secret Doctrine's message would later be picked up by the German occultist, who welcomed the pseudo-scientific prose of its author as the answer to a dream. The smug and condescending attitude of scientists and their devotees toward the unscientific had proved contagious among many in the newly created middle class. The mystics began to find themselves in a ridiculous position of having to satisfy the requirements of science in what are patently unscientific, we may say, non-scientific pursuits. Modernism in general was seen as largely an urban, sophisticated, intellectual, hence Jewish phenomenon, and this included science, technology, the Industrial Revolution, and capitalism. The only wholesome lifestyle was that of the peasant on his land, and the naive belief of these people of the land, that the pagans, with their sympathetic magic and worship of ancient gods in the form of such superstitious practice as fertility rites, the lighting of bonfires on particular days, and the whole host of cultural traditions that can be discovered by consulting Fraser's The Golden Bough, were set up in opposition to science with a suspect lack of human warmth and its cold indifference to the gods. What it really boiled down to me, I've read portions of the Secret Doctrine, and what it really boils down to is racism. And I'll read some more from Lavinda here and explain that. But then along came Blavatsky, whose new scientific attitudes that were properly understood and gave them a mystical twist. Taking her cue from Darwin, she popularized the notion of a spiritual struggle between various races and of the inherent superiority of the Aryan race. Hypothetically, the latest in the line of spiritual evolution, Blavatsky would borrow heavily from carefully chosen scientific authors in fields as diverse as archaeology and astronomy to bolster her arguments for the existence of Atlantis, extraterrestrials, life forms, and the creation of animals by humans, as opposed to the Darwinian line of succession. The rationale behind many later Nazi projects can be traced back through the writings of von List, von Swattendorf, and von Lebenfeld, to ideas first popularized by Blavatsky, a caste system of races, the importance of ancient alphabets, notably the runes, the superiority of the Aryans, a white race with its origins in the Himalayas, an initiated version of astrology and astronomy, and the cosmic truths coded within pagan myths. All of these and more can be found both in Blavatsky and in the Nazi Party itself, specifically in the ideology of this dark creature, the SS. It was, after all, Blavatsky who pointed out the supreme occult significance of the swastika, and it was a follower of Blavatsky who was instrumental in introducing the protocols of the Elders of Zion to a Western European community looking for a scapegoat. He's talking about an individual there who was a Russian countess, had a great deal of money. But before I get into that, talk a little more about the Nazi Party. For the Nazi Party was never merely a political party. It was always much more. Hitler himself warned his critics that if they understood National Socialism as a political party only, they were missing the point. Many observers have since agreed. Politics alone did not create such an engine of destruction, such a willing collaboration and mass murder of citizens from every walk of life. As Robert G. L. Waite says in his The Psychopathic God, Adolf Hitler, the hard historic fact about the genocide is that it was not caused by the exigencies of war, nor was it a political maneuver to cope with the internal unrest and domestic conflict. These people were killed as a result of one of Hitler's ideas, the idea of a super race, and the need to exterminate what he considered to be the vermin that were attacking it. This was an idea that can be traced to Hitler's early student days in Vienna and to the influence of racial tracts published by the leading occult anti-Semitic lights of the day, Guido von List and Lance van Lebenfels, and from there directly to the occultist and Eastern initiate Rudolf von Sabbatendorf, who incidentally, Sabbatendorf's real name was Glauer. He was not a nobleman. He had got some money together and decided to change his name so it would sound like he was somebody important. But in this century in Europe, racism had its roots in occultism. Racism is, after all, an expression of irrational fear, often, as we shall see, with sexual components, and the irrational often finds a home in the milieu of primordial, preconscious archetypes that is the environment of both religion and occultism. Racism and the occult were often found sharing the same magic circles in the early days of this century, and therewith hangs a tale. I guess we go on to the protocols of the Elders of Zion, if you like.
Well, before you get to that, why do you think that racism was so connected to the occult?
What's that now?
Why do you believe that racism was always connected to the occult?
Well, I think Blavatsky was trying to come up with some kind of reasoning, some way of promoting the Aryan race as being, superior. So her whole theory is based on the idea of root races, and that each successive race, keeps moving on toward the Superman, and that's what Hitler was looking for was to create a Superman. That was one of the main hidden facts about Nazism. I think it's just the same old thing of people that want to believe they're superior to others, and in doing so, they begin to develop a great deal of contempt and fear and hatred of others. I think that was very much demonstrated in what happened in Nazi Germany.
Okay. And then how does this lead into the protocols of the Elders of Zion?
Yeah. It has been a refusal of historians to view the Nazi Party as a religious or at least a mystical organization, a cult, that has contributed to so much confusion over the problem of neo-Nazism, ethnic cleansing, the white supremacy movement, and the skinheads. Indeed, yet another Blavatsky protege was the mysterious Yuliana Glinka, a Russian noblewoman who donated enormous sums of money to spiritualist mediums and their circles, and who was instrumental in promoting that notorious forgery, the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, which, along with Mein Kampf, can be considered one of the sacred texts of Nazism and neo-Nazism. As Norman Kahn illustrates at some length in Warrant for Genocide, the protocols were largely the product of a conspiracy between the Okhrana, the Tsar's secret police, and occult circles operating in Paris and St. Petersburg. Originally, this pamphlet was a smear against both the Jews and the Freemasons, and was probably created around 1895 to discredit enemies of the head of the Occult in Paris, one Rachkovsky. It was the occultist Madame Glinka who leaked the manuscript to the press after first attempting to convince a journalist that she was able to speak to the dead. The newspaper seized upon it in the heyday of the Dreyfus Affair and the first ever Zionist Congress presided over by Theodore Herzl in 1897. Well, you can see right there that it was bound to get a lot of publicity just due to the whole Dreyfus thing going on. And, of course, the first Zionist Congress. There was documentary evidence that the Jews operating through the Lodge network and secret rituals were putting the final touches on their program of world domination. All, as is well known by now, the protocols are a forgery, an old satire, using an imaginary conversation between Machiavelli and Montesquieu to draw attention to the policies of Napoleon III. But at that time, the authenticity of the protocols was a matter of faith among some of the most influential political and intellectual leaders of Europe, and would eventually become one of the sacred scriptures of Nazism. That, I think, pretty well sums it up. That's what I like about Lavenda, is he's writing a little bit wordy, but very concise. He seems to get to the heart of the matter pretty well and can summarize things very well.
Now, that's interesting. So you're getting almost all of that from Lavenda, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now,
and, he's quoting different people, too.
Yeah.
The book that I'm using here, and I've got other materials here I'm going to use shortly, too. But the book I'm using here is probably the best one I've ever seen about the Nazis and occult, and it's called Unholy Alliance, with Peter Lavenda as the author, a history of Nazi involvement with the occult.
What do you make of the allegations that Lavenda is the author of the Necronomicon?
Yeah.
What do you make of that?
I've read that, I've heard that, and I'm not really sure what to make of it. It makes me a little leery about, Lavenda, but then again, I mean, I've never, in his public pronouncements and, his speeches and, not speeches, well, he has made some speeches about the Nazi space program, but I've never really heard him say anything I thought was, really out there, or anything that I thought was anti-Christian or any hate mongering or anything like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I got you. See, yeah, I like his work
I think
too.
he may be one of these people that just dabbles around with that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't see any harm in it. The people, it's all white magic. No, it's actually, it has a very evil spiritual, origin, and it does make me a little leery about him.
Yeah, exactly. It makes me a little leery too. It makes me suspect of a lot of stuff he says. But anyway, I know he's a. Yeah. But that kind of brings up, because he does a lot of work too, as well, on the Process Church of the Final Judgment. You're familiar with them, right?
Now, I haven't read what he said about them. I hope he's against them.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's not guy. If he wasn't, then it'd be a big problem.
Yeah, I tell you that. What gets me is how the public really doesn't seem to understand. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
The public doesn't seem to understand that a lot of these people, the real origin of the crimes and things that they have committed is that they have become basically possessed by demonic spirits, or at least they're very much in close contact with evil. I mean, look at Charlie Manson. That guy. I mean, what does it take for people to realize what this guy's all about when he puts a swastika on his forehead? Puts it right between his eyes. Carved it in there. I guess he had some spare time in his cell.
Well, there's a document by the Immigration and Naturalization Service. They did an investigation to the Process Church, and they came up with all kinds of connections to from the Process to Manson, and even that the Manson women were sewing the Process insignias into their blankets while they're in prison. Are you familiar with that document?
No, I'm not, but it sounds very interesting. I'd like to know about it.
I could send it to you. Also, too, it talks about how Papa John Phillips, or the Mamas and the Papas, was their main financer there in California. And also, too, that Sirhan Sirhan was involved with the process and had been to process parties. And the process also, too, they're into that Nazi insignia and the swastika and stuff as well. What do you make of that?
They're heavy into it. It all dates back. It all has its origins in hell, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
I mean, these people are not just, like Levin was saying, it's true. The Nazis were not just another political party. I mean, they weren't like the Communist Party in one sense, because these guys have had occult roots. You know, they believed in Lucifer as God. You know, they worshipped him, and they were given power. Also, I mean, when you look at Dave McGowan's work, I know that you're familiar with Dave. I had him on the show. Oh, yeah. I've listened to him quite a few times. It seems interesting, you know, all these groups that were involved in the whole hippy-dippy thing out in California back in the 60s, you know, it wasn't all peace and love. It was some pretty ugly, nasty stuff going on. And, of course, the general public never really was clued in on all that. And it's just amazing, you know, how that people don't connect the dots and don't see where this is coming from.
Well, then let me ask you this: why do you think that the general public's not aware of this? Like even you know, you weren't aware of the document I was talking about, and you think it's a big part of all this. It's a big part of the Manson motive.
Sure. Well, I'll tell you,
it could be a big part of the Sirhan motive as well.
Yeah. Well, the way I see it, it's the American public really doesn't get very much news that's real. I mean, everything we see is colored. I mean, if there's a hurricane or some other natural disaster, you know, the reporting on it will probably be pretty good and pretty accurate. But when it comes to politics, and especially national or international politics, everything we see on the boob tube is colored by the people that are presenting the news. I mean, there's only a few corporations now that really control the news, and they tell you what they want you to know. One thing that I was kind of interested in was a friend of mine told me that he'd watched the BBC, and that he said, you know, I'll see events on the BBC, and then I'll watch them on American television. And he said the BBC tells you a lot more about it. And he said a lot of times it's a different spin when it comes across on American television. I think it's a fact. I mean, Bernstein, of Watergate days, back in, I believe it was 1977, he wrote an article for Rolling Stone magazine, and it was talking about the CIA and how the CIA has operatives within the media. In fact, I believe it was, trying to think of the name of the CIA head who was ousted at one point. But anyway, he said anybody who's anybody in the media probably is working for us. Now, I'm not saying these guys are directly agents. I'm saying they're operatives and they get paid. And sometimes they put in stories that are bogus to get across the viewpoint that the CIA wants.
Yeah, you know, I know that a couple of my favorite guests, Pierce Redmond and Tom Secker, have done a series. Are you familiar with these guys?
No, I haven't listened to that.
These are really great researchers. I'm really impressed with these guys. Redmond is in Brooklyn, and Secker is in the UK, but I don't hold that against them. And what do you call it? They've done this whole series where these guys are real professional investigative reporters. I'm very impressed with them because they've gotten all the FOIA documents from the Pentagon and stuff like that, and they're uncovering how every one of these movies that come out in the public are all funded and directed by the military. They have the documents, and also too, they're trying that the military now is trying to get in at the planning stages of these movies. They want to be they're trying to get the horse before the horse leaves the gate. They want to be making up the plots for these movies, not just inserting themselves into it. So,
well, I think we're seeing a stage where it's been going on for a long time, but the military and warfare is being glorified a great deal through the media, and especially the movies and television. And it's just amazing. I think I believe there will be a third world war prior to the takeover of the Antichrist. And that's my word.
Okay, we got to take a commercial break. We're here with Larry Hillman, and he has this nickname. Everyone's asking me in the chat room, why is this show called The Contractor Guy? I knew that was going to be trouble, Larry. But his name is Larry Hillman, but he's gotten this nickname, The Contractor Guy, from the Vizgoff. Vizgoff, a series of shows he did with Vizgoff, who nicknamed him The Contractor Guy, because if you look at his picture, he looks a little like the cable guy. So it's kind of an inside joke with these guys. But it's Larry Hillman, and is really authority on Hitler and the occult. And we're going to be getting to a little bit more about Crowley, and even has a tie into 9/11. So we'll be right back with more of Larry Hillman, the contractor guy, right after these messages. And now a word from our sponsors. Pacific West Bamboo, your premier source for sustainable building material. They provide construction-grade and craft-grade bamboo material for all your indoor, outdoor, and gardening needs. Contact them for event planning and display building as well. 503-839-8126. Or you go to their new website, pacificwestbamboo.com. Or you can contact them on Facebook at Pacific West Bamboo. That's 503-839-8126. Amanda from Pacific West Bamboo was our first sponsor. She's been so good to us, so please support her in return. I want to make everybody aware of our new members section at www.oppermanreport.com. You can go there and sign up for a monthly, quarterly, or yearly subscription. You can even purchase episodes one by one. You get full access to brand new original content, new guests, new uncensored interviews, my own investigations and reports, and we're going to be adding sections with documents, images, police reports, either provided by myself or by my guests, or for my own investigations, my own reports. So you can go to oppermanreport.com, and you can sign up there tonight. You can start listening tonight. Strawman. I want to mention Strawman. Strawman is a band out of Toronto, Canada. They're good friends of the Opperman Report. They're a trio of guys who share the same mindset most of us here do, and they put that energy into their words and music. So check them out at strawmanmusic.com and drop them a line to let them know that you heard them here on the Opperman Report. We'll be doing an interview with Sean Duffy soon. You can get an autographed copy of my book, How to Succeed as a Private Investigator, by visiting my PI website, emailrevealer.com. We also offer a computer and cell phone forensics. We can recover deleted text messages to uncover infidelity. We offer asset searches, locates, email tracing, background reports, and we can even trace your spouse's email address back to internet dating websites to catch them cheating online. You can reach us at 800-572-9762, or you can email me at emailrevealer@aol.com. New World Mexican Women. Everyone loves the New World Mexican Women, and their line of fine, handcrafted, authentic Mexican jewelry of stone mosaic and abalone stone inlay. In their first book, titled New World Mexican Women, available on lulu.com, they teach you how to make this jewelry, and they have a collection of love letters to their men from their hometown that have immigrated to the United States to find work. They have also published a new book entitled Azuquina to the Rodeo. It's about a young girl that falls in love with a rodeo bull rider, and she runs away with him without telling her family. You can find the New World Mexican Women by Googling New World Mexican Women. And you can ask them about their deals on wholesaling their fine jewelry and all of the other projects that they have going on. If you'd like to have your business or website advertised here and promoted all over the world on dozens of stations every day, give us a call at 800-572-9762 or email oppermanreport@gmail.com. And now back to our show. Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. We're here tonight with our guest, Larry Hillman, who is really an authority on Hitler and the occult and a lot of different topics. He's an evangelical Christian, as I am myself. And by the way, I just want to remind everybody, too, that I didn't mention at the opening of the show, is that if this is the first time you're hearing the show, please check out oppermanreport.com. My website, and also check out the member section over there. We have a lot of brand new content on there all the time, and I did a couple of really, really great interviews. I'll be talking about it during the after show. I got a whole bunch of announcements I want to make, and I'm going to be reporting too on that whole Weisenberg situation. You're not going to believe this character. We got a whole new deal to tell you about him. But we're here tonight with Larry Hillman. We're discussing Hitler, the occult, Crowley, Beatles, 9/11, a lot more. And Larry, I'm going to throw you a little bit of a curveball here.
Okay.
As we left, Bo, what is that noise, by the way? What do you got going on over there? You're being attacked by a...
I think it's my chair. It's a little squeaky, maybe.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
No, I got a squeaky chair, too. People like it, actually, you know? But yours sounds like you're under attack.
Well, it might not be professional, but it's real.
No, people find it charming, you know? They say, oh, I love that squeaky chair, you know?
Yeah.
But let me ask you this, and we were just talking before the break about how the U.S. military has such a heavy-handed influence over the movie industry.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think you and I would both agree that the powers that be that control this government and control the way things are going are not a friend of ours. They're the enemy of our soul.
Absolutely not. They're not a friend of ours.
Yeah. Right, they're pretty much as big as an enemy as you can get, and I think we could believe it. Agree that there's a Nazi origin to it. There's a satanic, Luciferian origin to what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But now in the movies, you never will ever see a Palestinian or an Arab who's a hero in the movies, and you'll never see an Israeli that's a villain ever.
Right.
Okay, so then as evangelical Christians, the mainstream church view is that we cannot criticize anything of Israel because these are God's chosen people, and if you bless Israel, you'll be blessed, and if you don't bless Israel, you won't be blessed. That's the party line for most evangelical fundamentalist churches.
You're exactly right.
Now,
I've heard it all my life.
Yeah, right.
But I don't agree with it. In recent years, I don't agree with it.
I don't either.
Israel... I'm not by any means an anti-Semite. I don't hate Jews and I don't hate Arabs either. But the idea that Israel is doing everything right and we've got to back them up on everything they do is ridiculous. It's a secular government, and they've done some very bad things in the past, as well as some very bad things being done to them. But they're certainly not lily white when it comes down to war crimes, etc.
I totally agree with you. And I think that people have a very myopic view in the church.
Right.
And it's how do you find a church then that agrees with that kind of opinion? It's really tough.
I don't. I haven't attended church for many years for more than one reason, but the main reason for quite a long time was I fell away from the faith when I was a college student in the late 60s and early 70s, and was walking around being hippie and dippy and had a psychedelic gleam in my eye. And I just started, sort of rejecting the gospel and what I had, the lifestyle I had been raised to live. And strangely enough, the thing that brought me back to it, back to the Lord, was I went through a very nasty divorce back in the 90s, mid 90s. And it really shot a hole in my life, and I began to kind of, go and wonder about the big questions. And finally, it dawned on me that there had to be an ultimate good, because things such as the Nazis, and again the Nazis, the things that they did, killing millions of people in those camps, the brutality they inflicted on the civilians in France and Poland and in Russia, just the abject brutality of these people. I began to realize there has to be an ultimate good. If there's an ultimate good, there has to be a God. And what I had been taught, that Jesus Christ was the Son of God, that he died on the cross for my sins, that he was a blood sacrifice for my sins, and that if I followed him, I'd be getting on the right path to eternal life. And so I turned away from the ways I had been living and began to try to straighten up my life. I still make a lot of mistakes. I stumble around sometimes, but that's what happened to me.
Well, you know what? I was almost the exact opposite. I no, really. I grew up a Catholic in Catholic church, but it really didn't mean anything to me. And I kind of pretty much just went through the motions. But then I was a hippie, and I was a yippie, and then I got saved. I got saved at when I was 29 years old. Guess when? September 9th, on my birthday. So I was born and born again on the same exact day.
Praise God.
Yeah. And I'll tell you a really quick story, because you mentioned how your divorce had a little hold in that. Because
it was tough.
Yeah, well, man, dude, I've been through it too. Let me tell you, people, the audience knows.
I heard you talking about it some with your daughter, a custody battle, and
oh yeah,
man, I feel for you. I didn't have that. I didn't have a custody battle because I didn't even have enough money to try to get custody.
Yeah.
But I know how it is to lose your kids. I was able to see them. I only lived about 30 minutes away, but I could see them on weekends. Whenever she allowed me to. And I really miss them. I didn't miss her after all the things that had gone down between us. But, boy, it's tough when you lose your children, the custody of your children.
You know what? It really is. Thank God. I have full custody right now, and she's with me here 5 days a week now. Things are back to normal. But I tell you, when I first, the divorce first happened in 2005, I got kicked out of my house. And I got saved here. I lived in New York, but I got saved here in a church in Las Vegas. In September 9th, on my birthday in 1989. And what happened was I could never find that church again. And in 2005, I got right around September 9th again, too. It was like September 7th I got kicked out of the house. Or September 6th. I got kicked out of my house, and I had to go stay at a budget suites, one of these weekly rental places. And I says, I got to find a real good church here. It says, let me look through the phone book and find a good church. And I found the church I got saved in, and I went back there. I was back there again, like 20 years later, again, on my birthday. And I just had one miracle after another with the whole custody thing. Everyone's heard the whole story. They're sick of it. But thank God everything came out good. Go ahead.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it seems like a lot of people that, I hate to use the word hippie. I really do. I think it's a stupid label that somebody at Life magazine invented. But I think the youth culture back then, it seemed like it was so great. I mean, it had all the answers, and eventually I began to realize just how hollow and really what a giant joke it really was, People were saying one thing and doing another, All that peace and love thing just didn't really work out the way it was supposed to. And, when people started getting into heavier drugs like cocaine, et cetera, a lot of really ugly aspects of the whole peace and love thing started showing up. That's why I really enjoyed Dave McGowan's series so much, because although I was living in Texas, I lived in Austin, which is the only liberal city in the state. And, of course, the university had like 50,000 people, and a lot of kids there, and it was the late 60s. So I got kind of caught up into that. And I started thinking about how we had been taken. We had been sold a bill of goods. We got hosed by the military-industrial complex and the CIA because they were behind a lot of that. A lot of the idea behind it was to stop the movement against the Vietnam War, and to basically stop the left in general, especially the youth culture part of the left.
Oh yeah, another book you would love is Dave. If you like Dave McGowan, is John Potash. who wrote the book "Drugs Used as a Weapons Against Us." It just came out just recently. He's another frequent guest, and it's all about.
I heard that. I think I heard of it on your show too, and I'm intending to get a copy of that. I've read Dave's series. I've never read the book he came out with after the series, but I mean that series just blew my mind. I couldn't believe how many times he could track back the machinations of the CIA and military as being behind certain artists. And they had affiliations with all this, and man, just really strange stuff. And never would have dreamed it at the time. What's really strange about Jim Morrison's father being the admiral who was in charge of, his ship was the ship involved in the Gulf of Tonkin incident. His ship, and I guess the task force with him. And I was like, wow, that's really strange, that Jim Morrison's dad was the guy who basically set up the false flag for the Vietnam War.
Yeah, and then Morrison denied he even had parents for a long time.
Yeah, that's exactly right. There was a reporter in New York when the Beatles were doing one of their tours there who kept pressing him on it, and I think he left the room. He just didn't want to talk about it, And he told people that his parents were dead at one point, too.
That's
and,
right.
Of course, that just made the press want to go and look them up, and they did. So,
hey,
there was a lot more than meets the eye with that guy.
Speaking of Dave McGowan, everyone needs to know that Dave is back in and out of the hospital again. The last I heard, he was back in.
And I hate to hear that.
Yeah, I know.
That's sad.
Yeah.
Very sad.
And so, his website is Center for an Informed America, and he has a PayPal donation button on air. But also, too, you can mail him a check. If you can make it out to a McGowan, McGowan, and mail it to 6912 North Sunset View, Prescott Valley, Arizona, 86315. And I'll put that up on today's blog post as well. Good old Dave McGowan. Keep him in your prayers, even though he's an atheist. Pray for you anyway, Dave.
Another guy that that I know is William Ramsey. William and I never met each other, but we corresponded quite a bit. I was on one show. We brought William on. I asked to have him on. Actually, we had a couple of them, and we were talking about Children of the Beast, Aleister Crowley, the people he had influenced, especially in rock music. And I really have a lot of respect for that guy. He's a very good writer and he's a really nice cat.
Oh, yeah, and he walks the talk,
He does.
As a matter of fact, he just popped up on my Skype a couple of minutes ago, but I'm sure he's busy tonight because he wrote that 9/11 book,
Yeah.
Oh no, but
he sent me a copy of both of his books, the one about 9/11 and the one about the Memphis 3.
Yeah.
And boy, that second book, it was almost like I wanted to, go out and do something, get violent maybe, I don't know. But it really made me angry to hear all that stuff.
Yeah, that West Memphis 3 crowd is a tough crowd. They're very obsessive.
That's what I hear. That's a pretty evil bunch of people.
Yeah.
In fact, I'd say it doesn't get much more evil than that.
Right, and they have connections to the Process Church now because of that Dave Michaels. Yeah, he's hanging out with that Genesis P. Orridge, who was original Process people. But now,
well, if you peel the onion back, it seems like a swastika always comes up.
Right.
And the Germans didn't call it the swastika. The ordinary German in the public, they call it the Hakenkreuz, which means crooked cross or bent cross. In other words, this is anti-Christian.
Oh, really?
And I think, it's a fact. And that was something I didn't know until I read some of Leviticus stuff and a couple other people. Another guy that you had on that I like is Daniel Hofstetter.
Oh, yeah.
And I was kind of into him for a while. And his book, Welcome to Terrorland, speaking of 9/11. And I thought that was a very interesting book. It's kind of interesting how you have all these devout Muslims who are going to go on a suicide mission, just happen to be drinking in topless bars and getting table dances. And one guy's living, I think it was Otto, was living with a stripper, Amanda Keller, I think is her name. And then the FBI goes in and she spills the whole story to Otziker. Then the FBI comes in and I guess made her an offer she couldn't refuse, and she recanted her story. And they did that to a lot of people down there in Venice, Florida. It's kind of strange.
Yeah, his work he's done on that whole 9/11 stuff down there with those flight schools, I think is unsurpassed by anything.
That's another guy. That's another guy who can't buy any time on national television, on the mainstream media.
Yeah, right.
He just, they won't talk to him. And I mean, the guy was a successful producer, I think, for NBC at one point. He had a show about economics, and he did some investigative work, I guess, in that. And I mean, he has credentials. He's not like some joker who went down there with a little camera and started asking some questions. But they won't touch him.
He's an extremely professional investigative reporter, and he actually lived in Barry Seal's home with his widow.
Yeah.
And investigate. Oh, yeah, and investigate Barry and the Boys. That book and investigate.
Yeah, I've got that book. But I think of the book he was talking about. Becoming friends with her. I didn't know that it gone to the point of them living together.
Oh yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, because she brought him down there to investigate, find out what happened to Barry Seal.
Right.
Hey,
right.
Let me ask you a question too. Now, what is the connection though between Hitler and Crowley?
Well, I think the connection is basically that I think the two of them admired each other. I think they were on the same wavelength. Crowley, some people believe, there's some evidence that Crowley was an undercover agent for British intelligence during the Second World War, and other people say he was an undercover agent for the British in the First World War, although he was pretending, and he did write a series of articles that were anti-British, pro-German and anti-British. I think they admired each other because they were both black magicians. That's the way I view those two guys. There's a book by Gerald Schuster. He's dead now, but he was an occultist, but not necessarily a bad guy. And he wrote a book about Hitler and Crowley and all the other people in that particular important time that were involved with the occult. And he says that both Crowley and Hitler were black magicians. I definitely believe that about both of them. I mean, Crowley, no doubt. I mean, he talks about it quite a bit.
Yeah. And Crowley, he was also an influence on the West Memphis Three, by the way, too, on Eccles, a huge influence. He has his whole body tattooed with Crowley stuff all over him.
Yeah.
So now, yeah. And then it seems to be a thread with these Satanists, with the child molestation and the child murders and the child sacrifice. Yeah. Now, did you find any of that with the Nazis?
The only thing I found with the Nazis, and believe me, I don't doubt they could have been involved in that. I don't doubt it a bit. But the only thing I saw about that I read was, I can't remember the name. It's a British author. He's been on History Channel with some of his stuff. It was about the Vril Society, and they believe that the Vril Society kidnapped children in some of the major cities in Germany and used them for blood sacrifices. There's some evidence pointing that way, but it's not real firm from what I could tell. And I'm sure, something like that has to have, 13 levels of cover-up. So they believe it to be true. There was a period of time, there was a movie in the early 30s when Hitler was just coming to power called M, and it starred Peter Lorre. He was a child molester, actually a child murderer. He would kidnap, the character would kidnap and murder children, and finally it got so bad the police were combing the city, and they were busting everybody and his brother. And so the underworld people got together, and they caught this guy, and they had a trial for him. And I think that was, I forget the German director's name who wrote and produced that, but I think that was his way, his kind of veiled way of letting people know that something was going on as far as, the kidnapping and murder of children.
Isn't it interesting too that it's a reoccurring theme that the government turns their eye, the people in power turn their eye, and they all kind of support it and do it. But the underworld, the criminal society, and the prisons, this is all it's verboten. You know, it's a crime that no one will tolerate, and that they exact their own.
You know what got me? I'm sorry.
Go ahead. And they exact their own revenge.
I'll tell you what got me was when they had the Franklin cover-up. There was supposed to be there was made a documentary on the whole Franklin cover-up and how the kids were processed through, and the big parties and all these Republican bigwigs came to it, et cetera, et cetera. And that was squashed. I mean, don't remember which channel was going to bring it on. There's one, Discovery Channel, or one of those was going to bring it on and put it on. It was made by a British crew, and they basically were told that if they put this on the air, that their license from the FCC might not be coming out anymore. In other words, you do this, and you won't have a network. So, they can squash these things.
Yeah, I actually had the producer and the director of the Conspiracy of Silence on my show.
Right.
It's in the members section. I'm looking up his name right now because I can't remember what it is. But he's another old time investigative reporter. Very impressive guy, award-winning guy. And what it was they actually bought it. They bought it back from the Discovery Channel. A bunch of high-ranking Republican characters bought it out, and that's how they were able to silence Conspiracy of Silence. And it is Tim Tate, who was the producer of that film.
Yeah.
And a very fascinating guy. And interesting enough, too, after I did that interview with Tim Tate, about a week later, I was contacted by the BBC about doing documentaries, because they heard I want to do documentary films. And they contacted me. I had a little meeting with them about the topics.
Wow.
That we could. Yeah, I know, man. I know. I need money.
That is cool, man. That's really cool. I'm glad to hear that.
I need money, man. I need money to get this stuff done.
I don't blame you. I understand. Believe me.
Yeah, this divorce stuff killed me.
To me, that is the ultimate betrayal of humanity. That is the ultimate sin to me, to sexually molest and or kill a child.
Yeah.
I mean, that to me would, if there are levels of hell, that's the level, the lowest level. I mean, that I can't abide that. I mean, it just creeps me out to the max. It's sickening.
But the thing is, it's more than just a sexual attraction, as they try and portray it. It's some kind. There's something else, because the elites in power do it. And have you ever noticed these priests that are doing it? They're molesting like 900 kids in their life. The average man doesn't even have sex with 100 adult women in his life. And these guys
I heard that.
Yeah, right.
Even in my younger days, wouldn't anywhere near that.
Yeah. Well, but what is it? What is there's something beyond. There's some other kind of evil motivation that goes on. Because again, it's what the cults do it. These West Memphis 3 guys.
I think it's the idea of the perversion of deflowering the innocent. Of abusing the innocent. I think that appeals to them because someone who do that has to be somewhat of a psychopath, I believe. Just doesn't care. It's, they get a thrill out of doing harm to an innocent.
Well, Crowley,
that's all I can figure.
Yeah, Crowley talked about it, and he said you get the most power by sacrificing.
Well, the whole idea behind sex magic was to get power. One thing, Stanley Kubrick, his last film with Eyes Wide Shut.
Yeah,
I think he was trying to tell the world about the elites and what was going on. And now it's not about children, but there's a scene where the main character goes to this very big, expensive mansion, and they're having a party there, and everybody's wearing masks, and they've got this circle of young, beautiful prostitutes, and there's a guy in the middle who it's a satanic mass, and it's really strange music. Apparently, it's some kind of like a Gregorian chant or something that was played backwards, and the music is just eerie, and the guy makes comments and, go through the ritual, and these women go off with different people, have sex with them. And the whole idea was, sex magic, gaining of power. And I didn't get that at all when I first saw it, but, after I started reading about Crowley a little bit, I began to understand, a little more about what was going on. These people, their whole thing is this witchcraft notion of gaining power by doing certain things, by being invested with more power by the forces of darkness. I think Kubrick may have been killed for making that film.
Well, yeah,
I think it's all kinds of occult symbolism, just one after another after another.
Well, he had a moat around his house.
What's that?
He had a moat.
Yeah.
He lived on a property in England with a moat. Anyway, listen, we got to take a little commercial break here. We're with Larry Hillman, the contractor guy. We're discussing Hitler, the occult, Crowley, Beatles. Hey, I want to get into Beatles, too, when we get back. A whole bunch of stuff, pretty much all over the board, but it seems to be a recurring thread through all the stuff we're talking about, which is this dark side of evil that seems to be oppressing us. We'll be right back after more of these messages with Larry Hillman, the contractor guy. And now a word from our sponsors. Pacific West Bamboo, your premier source for sustainable building material. They provide construction-grade and craft-grade bamboo material for all your indoor, outdoor, and gardening needs. Contact them for event planning and display building as well. 503-839-8126. Or you go to their new website, pacificwestbamboo.com. Or you can contact them on Facebook at Pacific West Bamboo. That's 503-839-8126. Amanda from Pacific West Bamboo was our first sponsor. She's been so good to us, so please support her in return. I want to make everybody aware of our new members section at www.oppermanreport.com. You can go there and sign up for a monthly, quarterly, or yearly subscription. You can even purchase episodes one by one. You get full access to brand new original content, new guests, new uncensored interviews, my own investigations and reports, and we're going to be adding sections with documents, images, police reports, either provided by myself or by my guests, or for my own investigations, my own reports. So you can go to oppermanreport.com and you can sign up there tonight. You can start listening tonight. Strawman. I want to mention Strawman. Strawman is a band out of Toronto, Canada. They're good friends of the Opperman Report. They're a trio of guys who share the same mindset most of us here do, and they put that energy into their words and music. So check them out at strawmanmusic.com and drop them a line to let them know that you heard them here on the Opperman Report. We'll be doing an interview with Sean Duffy soon. You can get an autographed copy of my book, How to Succeed as a Private Investigator, by visiting my PI website, emailrevealer.com. We also offer a computer and cell phone forensics. We can recover deleted text messages to uncover infidelity. We offer asset searches, locates, email tracing, background reports, and we can even trace your spouse's email address back to internet dating websites to catch them cheating online. You can reach us at 800-572-9762, or you can email me at emailrevealer@aol.com. New World Mexican Women. Everyone loves the New World Mexican Women, and their line of fine, handcrafted, authentic Mexican jewelry of stone mosaic and abalone stone inlay. In their first book, titled New World Mexican Women, available on lulu.com, they teach you how to make this jewelry, and they have a collection of love letters to their men from their hometown that have immigrated to the United States to find work. They have also published a new book entitled Azuquina to the Rodeo. It's about a young girl that falls in love with a rodeo bull rider, and she runs away with him without telling her family. You can find the New World Mexican Women by Googling New World Mexican Women. And you can ask them about their deals on wholesaling their fine jewelry and all of the other projects that they have going on. If you'd like to have your business or website advertised here and promoted all over the world on dozens of stations every day, give us a call at 800-572-9762 or email oppermanreport@gmail.com. And now back to our show. Welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. Show is brought to you by Audible.com. Go to audibletrial.com/Opperman Report. Get yourself a free audiobook. And by the way, his name in the commercial there, I got to fix that. His name is not Sean Duffy. It's Sean Duff from the band Strawman. StrawmanMusic.com. I got to work on that. Okay, but we're here tonight with Larry Hellman. Larry Hellman, the contractor, not the cable guy, the contractor guy. I got to work on that too. Hitler, the Occult, Crowley, Beatles, and more. Before we get into moving down the line a little bit with Hitler and stuff, what about Hitler being homosexual?
There's some evidence that he tried it. He may have been bisexual. I've seen several reports on that. But some people believe that at one point he couldn't really get off with any kind of sex. He basically had become impotent. Kind of very complex psychosexual stuff going on there. He did have a relationship with a girl who was his niece, Gaily Robel, or at least people believe he did. And he became so possessive of her, he wouldn't allow her to go out of the apartment. This was back in the days before he became the Führer. He became the leader of Germany in the late 20s. And apparently they did have a sexual relationship, but there's also reports that the relationship was very strange, very perverse. And so Hitler was, I think, all over the board as far as sex goes. There are some reports from the police in Vienna that he was a hustler of homosexual. He's one of those guys who hustles older men, I guess there's always been some market for that in the underworld.
Yeah, and that niece committed suicide.
Yeah. That he committed suicide?
The niece did.
The need to commit suicide?
No, the niece that he was molested.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry, Ed. Yes, you're right. Apparently, they said she committed suicide. He had a gun there, handgun. And some people believe that, no, she didn't commit suicide. Either Hitler killed her or one of Hitler's underlings did. In fact, a lot of people are really kind of skeptical about it. But one thing, she didn't shoot herself in the head, which most people do when they're committing suicide. She was shot in the chest. Yeah, I think a bullet pierced her heart. So kind of indicates maybe she had some help in committing suicide. She was suicided.
Right.
Because people were on the brink of kind of figuring it out, and it was starting to hurt his political career, and he's become just obsessed with her.
What do you make of that?
You got all the food groups there,
What do you make of the theory that Hitler's mother was a maid for the Rothschilds, and perhaps he was related to the Rothschilds?
That all sounds like a lot of bunk to me. I think that was, a lot of crap. I haven't really seen anything that really, indicates that to be true. I know it's one of those rumors that's been floating around forever, but I've read a couple of explanations of that, and it seems like it doesn't hold up.
And what about I'm sure it's kind of a little off topic, but we're talking about Crowley too, about the theory that Crowley could be the father of
Barbara Bush?
Yeah, because they look a lot alike, man.
Isn't that a horrible thought?
Well, you know what? They look so much alike. And why would he marry a woman that looks like that? He's a good-looking guy. Plus, he's CIA. He's got money. He's doing all this stuff. Why would he marry that woman?
I don't think he married her. I think it was an illegitimate. I don't even know if we use that term anymore. But it was out of wedlock. I'll put it that way. And they think that instead of Barbara Bush's father being whoever he was, George Walker, I believe, was Barbara Bush's father. They believe that Barbara Bush's mother may have had an affair with Crowley. and that may be true. They do look something alike. They have very similar personalities.
Yeah, right. I'm familiar with that, but I'm saying, what would motivate George Bush to marry Barbara Bush? She looks like she's his mother.
I think, it may be just one of those business associates type thing, because Herbert Walker, was in business with Brown Brothers, and, for a long time, Prescott Bush was, I guess the majority of his time in employment was with the Brown Brothers Harriman. And in fact, that kind of leads into the next thing I was going to talk about the Nazi connections of the Bush family.
Okay.
If you want to hear that.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. This is from Webster Tarpley's unauthorized biography of George Bush. And he talks about the Hitler Project, and I'll get into that. President Bush's family had already played a central role in financing and arming Adolf Hitler for the takeover of Germany, in financing and managing the buildup of Nazi war industries for the conquest of Europe and war against the USA, and in the development of Nazi genocide theories and racial propaganda with their well-known results. The facts presented here must be shown and their implications reflected upon for a proper understanding of President George Herbert Walker Bush and of the danger to mankind that he represents. The President's family fortune was largely a result of the Hitler Project, the powerful Anglo-American family associations, which later boosted him into the Central Intelligence Agency and to the White House. Fritz Thyssen and his business partners are universally recognized as the most important German financiers of Adolf Hitler's takeover of Germany. At the time of the order seizing the Thyssen family's Union Banking Corporation, Mr. Fritz Thyssen had already published his famous book, I Paid Hitler, admitting that he had financed Adolf Hitler and the Nazi movement since October 1923. Thyssen's role as a leading backer of Hitler's grab for power had been noted by U.S. diplomats in Berlin in 1932. The order seizing the Bush-Thyssen Bank was fiercely quiet and modest about the identity of the perpetrators had been nailed. But 2 weeks before the official order, government investigators had reported that W. Averill Harriman was in Europe sometime prior to 1924, and at that time became acquainted with Fritz Thyssen. Harriman and Thyssen agreed to set up a bank for Thyssen in New York, and Harriman's associates would serve as directors. Thyssen's agent, H.J. Cohenhoven, came to the United States prior to 1924 for conferences with the Harriman Company in this connection. When exactly was Harriman in Europe sometime prior to 1924? In fact, he was in Berlin in 1922 to set up the Berlin branch of W.A. Harriman and Company under George Walker's presidency. The Union Banking Corporation was established formally in 1924 as a unit in the Manhattan offices of W.A. Harriman and Company, interlocking with the Thyssen-owned Bank Boorhandel in Schiedbart, BHS in the Netherlands. Please forgive me for stumbling over that one. The investigators concluded the Union Banking Corporation has, since its inception, handled funds chiefly supplied to it through the Dutch bank by the Thyssen interest for American investment. The Walker Bush firm's banking activities were not just politically neutral money-making ventures, which happened to coincide with the aims of the German Nazi. All of the firm's European business in those days was organized around anti-democratic political forces. The great financial collapse of 1921 and 31 shook America, Germany, and Britain, weakening all governments. It also made a hard-pressed Prescott Bush even more willing to do whatever was necessary to retain his own new place in the world. It was this crisis that certain Anglo-Americans determined on the installation of a Hitler regime in Germany. So basically, the Thyssen empire was financed by Prescott Bush, who was the father of George Herbert Walker Bush and the grandfather of Shrub. So there we have the beginnings of their Nazi shenanigans. I could also read from an article by Alex Constantine. It's on the same subject.
Yeah, why not?
Okay.
I'm a big fan of
1929 stock market bubble popped. Wall Street credit lines used to buffer German reparation payments dried up, and the world economy deteriorated rapidly. It became clear that unless a brutal regime were imposed, squeezing reparations out of Germany would be impossible. Hence, Hjalmar Schacht resigned as Reichsbank president on March 7, 1930, to devote his full energies to organizing financial support for Adolf Hitler. Then on January 5, 1931, Schacht held an historic meeting with Fritz Thyssen, Hermann Göring, and Adolf Hitler. Thyssen arranged a $250,000 gold mark credit line for the Nazis through the Union Banking Corporation, a company set up in 1923 by W.A. Harriman and George Herbert Walker, whose CEO since 1926 was Prescott Bush, father of the 41st President of the United States, George Herbert Walker. Incidentally, the same year, UBC merged with Brown Brothers, which held a one-third stake in Consolidated Silesian Steel Corporation, a complex of steelmaking, coal mining, and zinc-making activities in Germany and Poland. In 1932, Thyssen upped the ante and contributed 3 million gold marks to bring Hitler to power. In spite of the fact that Nazi vote totals had declined, it was a legal coup perpetrated in a true conspiratorial fashion by a cabal, including Wall Street ally Baron Kurt von Schroeder, who was violently opposed to the proposed New Deal-like reforms of the sitting von Schleicher government. The German president, Oskar von Hindenburg, admired in a complex of personal financial woes, was convinced by this cabal to relieve Schleicher of his chancellorship and appoint Hitler. Weeks later, the Nazis orchestrated the famous Reichstag fire, which was used as a pretext for granting Hitler dictatorial power. Hitler immediately reappointed Schacht as president of the Reichsbank, made Thyssen director of the Ruhr industrial region with massive war contracts, and gave Hindenburg a vast tract of state forest in East Prussia. So essentially, the Union Banking Corporation, whose director was Prescott Bush of the Bush crime family, essentially the Bush crime family had a lot to do with bringing Hitler into power in the Hitler Project. That's kind of sickening, but it's true nevertheless.
Yeah, Prescott Bush was actually had a bunch of his assets seized by Hoover because for supporting the Nazis. You know what? But you caught my attention with this guy Harriman because I really don't know much about him. But there's a scene in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. You familiar with that? Where they're robbing the train. And the guy keeps saying,
it's been a long time since I've seen it, but I've seen it a couple of times. Yeah,
and the guy keeps saying, I work for W.H. Harriman, blah, 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 you know. And that's supposed to be some kind of signal. And there's even something about the Butch Cassidy, when they were down in Bolivia and stuff like that, they were down there for more than the movie portrays. Are you familiar with any of that story?
Well, the only thing I know about Harriman, and using his name, is that the Harriman family made their fortune, which was considerable, in the railroad business.
Right.
And so, therefore, the connection to Harriman, I'm sure the Harrimans owned that train, you know, in reality. And as far as what they were doing down in Bolivia, all I remember from the story, in the movie, was they went down there to escape the Pinkertons that the powers that be had sicked on them to, bring them to justice, actually to shoot them, I guess. And they were down there because of that, but I don't remember anything else about it.
Yeah, I remember hearing once. I haven't looked into the story myself, but that there was more to the story of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid than we saw in that nice, fun movie. And there's a lot more going on there. Someone from the chat room was asking about that one time Hitler was contacted by a witch who told him to take some piece of a stick or a branch or something like that.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, he did. There was I guess you call him a psychic and, entertainment magician. His name was Hanussen. And he told him, for whatever reason, got in contact with Hitler, who was really down in the dumps at the time because he looked like his political career was ever going to make it because he could never beat out people like Hindenburg. And Hanussen told him to get a mandrake root, which looks like... I don't really know how to describe it, but they say it looks like I've seen a picture of one. It looks kind of like a man, like a cartoon version of a man, with arms, legs, and head.
Right.
And he said that he was to bury this thing at a certain time, and I guess say some words over it, and that his career would clear up. I wish I had that portion of the story all written out for me. I could do a better job. But what happened was that. Hitler did those things. He got the root, he buried it at midnight and said the chant or whatever. And sure enough, next thing you know, his career picked up and he was eventually brought in as chancellor. So he was in debt to Hanussen. But later on, Hanussen was killed in one of their purges, the Night of the Long Knives. They got rid of a whole lot of people they didn't like and people that knew too much. And it turns out that Hanussen was a Jew.
Oh, really?
Hitler never knew it. So I think that's kind of like he didn't want that story out, so it got out eventually anyway. I guess it was too late. But at any rate, I guess Hanussen had supped with the devil and didn't carry a long-handled spoon because they eventually caught up with him.
Wasn't there something, too, with that one of Hitler's, like maybe it was the SS or something like that, but one of his departments, his divisions, was loaded up with homosexuals?
Yeah. When you get down to it, the Nazi brown shirts, a lot of them originally were guys who were, basically booted out of the army after World War One, and they really were a lot of unemployed, just kind of tough guys. And one of the strange things about them is one called the Freikorps. One group called the Freikorps was very famous for being very vicious and brutal, and they were known to be homosexual. There was a lot of activity like that. Ernst Röhm, who was the head of the SA, the brown shirts, was a homosexual, as were many of the upper level in the brown shirts. And they were the butch, masculine type of guys, and apparently they were big on having sex with young men, younger, I guess more feminine-looking men. I don't know, it's pretty weird. But when they went to round them up on the Night of the Long Knives, they had embarrassed them because their homosexuality had started really embarrassing them with the public. And they didn't need that at the time. They needed their regime to, kind of get stabilized. I believe it's 1934 they did this. At any rate, they went out and rounded a bunch of them up and managed to kill them. And they said they had been plotting a coup against Hitler, which they hadn't been, but it was a convenience store to get rid of some people that were embarrassing him. When they went to get Rome, they found him in bed with his chauffeur, who was a very young man. So, they were a pretty strange bunch. And at one time, I remember reading a quote from Rome and said that he preferred homosexuals in his group because they were a lot more vicious and a lot more reckless than straight men. So, go figure.
Interesting. I gotta say, it's kind of funny. I used to own a nightclub in Manhattan. I think it was Monday night that was either Sunday night or Monday night that was gay night. We had all the gays would come out. And that was the night we had the most trouble. There was the most fights. There was the most problems in the bathrooms. and the coach checked, believe it or not, the bathrooms were a big issue. And the coach checked. There was just all these. It was always the most problems. That one night of the week.
Yeah.
Now you said though that you're talking about the Reichstag fires, and how that.
Yeah, the Reichstag fire I think was a false flag. The Nazis burned down the Reichstag and blamed it on their enemies, the communists in particular, and they also implicated the Social Democrats. Neither one of those people, neither one of those groups had done it. It was the Nazis themselves. But just like 9/11, you get a false flag. You blame it on eventually you blame it on bin Laden and his band of merry men, and you blame it on Saddam Hussein because, hey, it looks good. It gives you a chance to go back into Iraq, which you had been planning all along. So that's what I think it's the equivalent. Also, the Reichstag fire, Hitler went in and asked for the Enabling Act, and it was run through the Reichstag after they got everybody back together. They passed a law called the Enabling Act, which is very similar to the Patriot Act. So I think when 9/11 came along, it was just taking a play out of their old Nazi playbook, and people like the Bush family would know all about that.
Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing, because the Bush came right out of that, and of course they would imitate it.
Yeah.
Now, but what about William Ramsey talk about there's occult significance to 9/11. What do you come up with on that?
Well, I think he would know a lot more than I would. As far as I'm concerned, I know one thing about it that was very strange was the idea of the numbers, because when you think about what they call the Night of the Long Knives, the Crystal Knock, the Night of Broken Glass in Germany, that occurred, I'm trying to say 1933, 1934, but it was on November 9th. So, and you know how that it would be written in Europe would be 9/11. So I think those two numbers, the 9 and the 11, have some significance. I think this was, they picked those because of their significance. And numerology is a very spooky stuff. Also, you get into numerology. Some people say in the assassination of John Kennedy was they used numerology in the fact that they killed him on the 33rd parallel. Where the place that he was at that point in Dallas was 33rd parallel. So, I think there may be some truth in that. There probably is. I think it's important to them, to use these numbers.
There's even
one thing I think. Go ahead.
There's a lot of evidence too that even the NASA launching these or the times and the dates and stuff that they use is also following along these occult Nazi lines.
Yeah. Well, if you think about it, the people that started NASA were all the paperclip scientists that we brought over from Nazi Germany. The head man was Werner von Braun. Werner von Braun was an SS, I believe, a colonel in the SS. Maybe wrong on that, his rank, but I know he was in the SS. You didn't get in the SS unless you were a dedicated Nazi. But they tried to make him all squeaky clean and, he's just a scientist, and the bad evil Nazis made him make a missile, and, he had to be one of the two because he was forced into it. I don't believe that at all. I believe he was working for them because he believed in the cause. And, of course, he had a much better deal by going to America than he would have had going to Russia. So I guess, he loaded up his stuff and hit the trail along with an awful lot more of the people that were in the German missile program.
And who else did they work with here was Jack Parsons.
Yeah. Jack Parsons. There's a crater on the moon named for Jack Parsons.
Yeah.
He was apparently a genius in engineering, even though he didn't have any formal education. I don't think past high school. I don't know how he did it, but he apparently was extremely good at it. And he was a guy who invented a type of rocket fuel that was used by the American military during the Second World War. And so he was part of the early space program. Of course, he apparently, the story is that he blew himself up,
right,
accidentally. But I don't know if it was accidentally or not. Again, I apologize.
Don't worry.
But I have my doubts that it was accidental. I think he knew too much and somebody didn't want him there. And it's hard to say.
And he's another one.
He was good friends with the guy who invented Scientology. Name escapes me right now.
L. Ron Hubbard.
L. Ron Hubbard was his buddy, and eventually L. Ron Hubbard stole his girlfriend and some of his money. I think he took off. So, you gotta watch who you hang out with. I think Crowley they both were kind of kowtowing to Crowley, and I think he got sick of both of them, and just kind of thought they were a couple of clowns. He didn't really want to have that much to do with them.
What do you make of that? Have you researched that story about the Moonchild with Crowley and Parsons? And I think, I think Crowley was involved in that too. But L. Ron Hubbard and Parsons trying to create the Moonchild.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt they tried it, and I wouldn't doubt that they had some success. According to the story, they went out in the desert, to give birth to this Moonchild, and as they were doing so, there was a rift. I believe that there are different dimensions. And I believe in the supernatural very much, and I believe there was another dimension there that they were not familiar with, well, they were trying to bring something in, and they did. Something evil came through. In other words, maybe this was the beginning of the end of the epoch. That they had brought in something very evil that was going to wreak havoc on the world.
Okay, we got to take another commercial break. We're here with Larry Hillman, the contractor guy. We're talking about Hitler, the Occult, Jack Parsons, Crowley. They haven't gotten to the Beatles yet. 9/11. We're talking about pretty much a lot of stuff to cover. We'll be right back after these messages with more of Larry Hillman. And now a word from our sponsors. Pacific West Bamboo, your premier source for sustainable building material. They provide construction-grade and craft-grade bamboo material for all your indoor, outdoor, and gardening needs. Contact them for event planning and display building as well. 503-839-8126. Or you go to their new website, pacificwestbamboo.com. Or you can contact them on Facebook at Pacific West Bamboo. That's 503-839-8126. Amanda from Pacific West Bamboo was our first sponsor. She's been so good to us, so please support her in return. I want to make everybody aware of our new members section at www.oppermanreport.com. You can go there and sign up for a monthly, quarterly, or yearly subscription. You can even purchase episodes one by one. You get full access to brand new original content, new guests, new uncensored interviews, my own investigations and reports, and we're going to be adding sections with documents, images, police reports, either provided by myself or by my guests, or for my own investigations, my own reports. So you can go to oppermanreport.com and you can sign up there tonight. You can start listening tonight. Strawman. I want to mention Strawman. Strawman is a band out of Toronto, Canada. They're good friends of the Opperman Report. They're a trio of guys who share the same mindset most of us here do, and they put that energy into their words and music. So check them out at strawmanmusic.com and drop them a line to let them know that you heard them here on the Opperman Report. We'll be doing an interview with Sean Duffy soon. You can get an autographed copy of my book, How to Succeed as a Private Investigator, by visiting my PI website, emailrevealer.com. We also offer a computer and cell phone forensics. We can recover deleted text messages to uncover infidelity. We offer asset searches, locates, email tracing, background reports, and we can even trace your spouse's email address back to internet dating websites to catch them cheating online. You can reach us at 800-572-9762, or you can email me at emailrevealer@aol.com. New World Mexican Women. Everyone loves the New World Mexican Women, and their line of fine, handcrafted, authentic Mexican jewelry of stone mosaic and abalone stone inlay. In their first book, titled New World Mexican Women, available on lulu.com, they teach you how to make this jewelry, and they have a collection of love letters to their men from their hometown that have immigrated to the United States to find work. They have also published a new book entitled Azuquina to the Rodeo. It's about a young girl that falls in love with a rodeo bull rider, and she runs away with him without telling her family. You can find the New World Mexican Women by Googling New World Mexican Women. And you can ask them about their deals on wholesaling their fine jewelry and all of the other projects that they have going on. If you'd like to have your business or website advertised here and promoted all over the world on dozens of stations every day, give us a call at 800-572-9762 or email oppermanreport@gmail.com. And now back to our show. Welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. We're here tonight with Larry Tillman, the contractor guy. Talking about Hitler, the Occult, Crowley, and we're going to get to the Beatles, 9/11, and more. But speaking of 9/11 and the Rostock fires, Are you familiar with the Russian 9/11, the apartment bombings in Russia?
Just vaguely.
Yeah.
Just vaguely. I've seen a documentary on it, and it was very strange, just like 9/11 was, and looks like it could be their equivalent.
It was exactly like 9/11. It also happened in September. Did you know that?
What's that?
It also happened in September.
I didn't know that. I didn't remember that.
Took place in
that seems odd.
Yeah, took place in the month of September. And did you know that on the morning of 9/11, the first foreign leader to call George Bush up was Putin, and he called him up, and the quote was, "I know exactly how you feel."
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, it's very strange. I don't know what to make of Putin one way or the other. I know one thing, I wouldn't want to have to go against him, in a political situation. He's a pretty tough guy. Doesn't seem to back down very easily.
Yeah, I don't see it. I know a lot of people, I guess in this movement, or whatever you want to call it, the awake movement or whatever, to see Putin as some kind of a hero, as some kind of an ally. I don't see that at all, not even a little bit. He's an oligarch. He's a KGB agent. What more? I don't know.
Well, he's feathered his own nest and done some really rotten things to people along the way, I think. So, I'm kind of with you. I don't necessarily think he's a Hitler or a Stalin, but he's not necessarily a nice guy either.
No, he's no Bernie Sanders, that's for sure.
Nobody's going to take the mic away from him.
That's right. Yeah. So, who are you supporting? Anybody in this? Do you see any?
Oh no, gosh, no. I don't believe that either political party represents the common ordinary American. I think we're given an illusion of a choice. I think it's been that way for an awful long time. Really, look at Trump. The guy's. It's almost like a circus act. He does it, insults everybody, and he does this demagoguing thing where he never gives any details or particulars about what he's doing. What he's going to do, I should say, when he gets elected. He's talking about illegal immigration. Well, he's talking about building a fence. Well, yeah, great, 1,900 miles of a fence. Because that's how many miles it would be. And also, like this guy, Jorge Ramos, who I think works for Univision, he's here kind of like their Walter Cronkite or whatever. Anyway, he was going, well, do you realize it's going to take, I think it was $100 billion to deport all the people that, have immigrated here? And there's like 11, 12 million, people that are here illegally from Mexico. It just, when you start getting down to the plan, who's going to pay for that?
Yeah, everyone you deport has to have a hearing and they can appeal. It's not. It's not just a matter of loading people in a truck and driving them across the border. Well,
the one thing he did say, one thing he said that really is ridiculous to me. Well, the Mexican government is sending all their criminals or rapists and murderers. I live in Texas. Okay, I've been around Mexican American people all my life. I've known some that were illegals. In fact, probably half the guys that are mowing the yards for people in my neighborhood are probably illegals. Most of those people are here for one reason: they want a job. It's hard for them to survive in Mexico anymore. And a lot of that has to do with the American economy. But these people, the only solution I could see for it would be to make it relatively easy to get a green card or work permit. And therefore, you can be checked out, and you could come across, find a job, or not find a job. You don't, and you go back home. But to pick on people like that are, really very poor and really don't have a lot going. It just seems kind of mean spirited to me. I don't believe people should come here illegally, but calling them rapists and murderers. There will be a few of those amongst them, but the majority of them are just ordinary working people.
No, I hear you. I spent a lot of time down at the border, too, in Arizona. And people got to understand these border towns. There's a lot of traffic that goes back and forth all day long. People in there are people in Mexico that have money that come to the United States to shop, and there's a lot of people in the United States that go down there to party. So this idea of just putting up this wall and the only people coming through are for immigrants. There's traffic. There's huge traffic through these border towns, and then there's creeks and streams and rivers and stuff that goes. It's just the whole idea of a wall is insane. But Trump's a total.
Well, another solution to the problem is to really crack down on people that are hiring illegals.
Yeah, right.
But before you do that, you need to go through the process of making it relatively easy for people to apply to work here. I believe that would solve a lot of the problem. And we can't do that. We have to be racist about it. We have to be, we have to do fear mongering, and I'm sorry, it's just dumb to me. It's a dumb policy, and Trump. I just get a laugh out of him.
Well, it is entertaining. It's entertaining, but the thing is, he is the guy. This is he's the strongman fascist dictator. That might be a test run.
That's what I'm afraid of. Yeah. I'm afraid he's going to get elected. Oh man. I don't know. It could well happen. The thing that gets me is the old line of the Republican Party. They don't know what to do about the guy. They don't know how to approach him. They don't know how to counteract him. If you say anything about him, he makes some kind of ad hominem attack on you. Even to the point of talking about your looks. I don't think he has much room to be talking because he looks like he's got a animal squatting on his head, Yeah. I don't get it. He just real mean. He's like a schoolyard bully, Say something he doesn't like and comes over and pushes you around,
But on the other hand, this is a guy with so much skeletons in his closet. The Trump University, which was shut down. He's being sued right now by the Attorney General of the state of New York for Trump University. He stole money from people. He just created a university. It would be like you or me just creating a corporation calling it Medical Center. And he creates this university, and he was still.
Hasn't he been bankrupt like 4 times, something like that?
He's done a lot of bankruptcies, but also to his connections.
He takes advantage of the bankruptcy laws. He let people know about that the other night. He said something like, "I'm taking advantage of the bankruptcy law." I'm going, my God, these people want this man as president,
Okay, they talk about the bankruptcies.
He can't even conduct his own affairs,
but they don't
manage his own business. They don't
talk about the blatant fraud though with the Trump University or his connections to Jeffrey Epstein, this convicted pedophile.
Oh,
they don't even ask him about that.
God, that guy.
Yeah,
I heard the show on that, and my God, what a scumbag! That's insane. And he's apparently able to keep doing it. Nothing's going to happen to him,
Oh, yeah, he's free as a bird right now. He's not even registered as a sex offender in the United States. He's registered down in the Virgin Islands. But Trump said this was his friend for 15 years. He's a great guy. He loves women as much as I do. On the younger side. That's what he said. And not even one question about this. I did a meme about it, with that quote of Trump, and they mentioned it on MSNBC, but they just glossed over it.
It's okay to like younger women, but when you're hanging out at elementary schools with a raincoat,
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I hope Trump's not like that. If he is, he's an even bigger creep than I thought he was.
Well, Epstein's victim, the one that's in all these lawsuits, Veronica Roberts, worked for Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago. That's how Epstein, his procurer there, that woman, Ghislaine Maxwell. That's how she found him on a Trump property. And a lot of these parties with Epstein and Prince Andrew all took place at Mar-a-Lago on Trump property. So, you can say it's a coincidence, but I don't, you could say it's a coincidence.
That's some darkness there. That's a wicked,
yes.
That is a wicked mess there.
This is no joke.
The thing with Prince Andrew is really weird, too. How old was that guy? He couldn't be, about 30? Maybe max?
Prince Andrew, no, he's pretty old. He's like 45.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
I was thinking he was younger, but it's like, my God, what's a young guy like that being, I don't know.
I think you're thinking of Princess Di's kids. They're young. They're in their 20s.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of, yeah.
Yeah, Prince Andrew's like the brother of Prince Charles.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Well, let's
I'm getting them mixed up.
Yeah,
Getting them mixed up. You're right.
You sent me a bunch of stuff here in the picture, stuff about the Beatles and Lady Gaga and Kurt Cobain and Courtney Love. Courtney Love, by the way, was on Epstein's plane as well. And I had her father on this show, and he talked about how you heard that?
Yeah, Viz had him. I haven't heard yours, but I heard the one that Viz, Keith Hansen, who I used to be associated with, his show. He had him on for what he called Nolapalooza. He used to have a show called, From the Grassy Knoll. He had like a weekend where he just had one guest after another, and he had him on, Hank Harrison. And I almost fell out of my chair because he basically said in no uncertain terms that Courtney killed Kurt Cobain.
Oh, yeah, he says that, but listen to this.
I was like, what? I thought if it was true, I wouldn't be saying it, in public, but he did.
Well,
didn't seem to have a problem with it.
Well, you know what he said on my show, because we were talking about, I put him in touch with John Potash, who wrote the book Drugs as a Weapon Against Us, and we were talking about how Courtney Love was on Epstein's plane. She was part of Epstein's group there. She was in his black book and everything. And
yeah, maybe that's a source of a problem.
Oh, yeah, well, listen to this.
Being molested as a young girl, I can see that.
She was absolutely molested as a young girl, but and all other stuff, too. When she was 15 years old, she was in Ireland with 10,000 hits of LSD and dating a full-grown CIA agent that was Hank Harrison's friend. So he admitted that on my show, and he also said that she was involved in procuring kids for sex trafficking. For powerful people. Yeah, I know. It should be front-page news.
I can tell you a story about her that happened in Austin. I had a good buddy that used to work at a nightclub called Liberty Lunch, and it was a big nightclub downtown, and it had it was just an old warehouse is what it was. It was a huge area there. So they would bring in groups that were not quite extremely big yet, but were kind of getting that way. They had people like, her group then was called Hole, I think, kind of apropos. And at any rate, my buddy took care of people. He was kind of the handler for these people. He would, get things for them, whatever they wanted to drink, whatever they wanted to eat. If they needed to go somewhere, he'd escort them around. And he said he had the assignment of, trying to take care of Courtney Love. And he said, I have never met anybody as despicable, something to that effect. And he called her the C word, which four-letter word. And this guy Al he's not really prone to being vulgar, especially about women, but he just despised her. He said the woman came off the bus with her arm bleeding from just having hit up some heroin. And I was like, what? So yeah, man, she didn't care. She just did whatever she wanted to do, and it seemed like, everybody kind of tried to ignore it. He said she was very rude and just an obnoxious person. So, looking at her background, I can kind of see how she became that way.
Well, yeah, she was on heroin from 15 years old, and also, too, she grew up in San Francisco there and went to the Presidio daycare, the middle school. And now they're thinking, too, that she might have been at the Presidio Daycare Center around that same time as well. With Colonel Aquino.
That was the whole Aquino thing that Mae Brussel tried to break up, I think.
Oh, yeah. Let me ask you real quick. I hope I didn't just lose you. You there? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I'm still here.
I thought you dropped off. You sent me a picture of about Yoko Ono and John Lennon's relationship. What was that about?
That was a picture that they made. It was inside one of their albums. Where, they had just gotten married and they called themselves two virgins, so they wanted to have a picture of themselves in a nude. And, I think they both should have kept their clothes on. But actually that picture and the pictures that you saw were illustrating that particular show. That was done later by a guy I don't even know. I forget his name right now, but he took the shows and he enhanced them. He put in, photographs and different, I guess say graphic representations of certain things we were talking about. It's kind of hard to explain it, but he calls it enhancement. I don't have a problem with it. I don't own the rights to the show. he still has that, and he sells them. He sells the 30 parts of it, but that part of it was just done later. I don't think anybody cared to know. I didn't. I thought he did a good job. Some of them were a lot better than others, but he did a good job. Of, hopefully, somebody will be able to get something out of that.
Hey, what do you make of Crowley's influence on the Beatles and the theory that Yoko is some kind of a witch, and even their Process Church connections?
Well, I really never thought much about Crowley being involved with the Beatles. It just didn't. I always thought of Crowley as being kind of a nefarious, kind of very evil individual. And I was always, the Beatles were like my favorite band, and I thought they were great and peace and love and everything. And apparently there was a dark side to them that I just never saw, or maybe a dark side to John Lennon I never really saw. And I think that, the album cover on Sgt. Pepper, where they've got all these different personalities, pictures of them and behind them. Well, Crowley was in that, Crowley. And I didn't pick up on it because way back when, I didn't know who he was anyway. It didn't make any difference to me. I could identify some of the people there, like, I think Sonny Liston was there, and, Mae West and Marilyn Monroe and a whole bunch of other people. I really didn't put it together, but apparently there was a dark side to John Lennon where he apparently had dabbled in the occult. The part about
McCartney too,
Yoko, I don't know anything about that, but it wouldn't surprise me in the least. I always thought she was kind of strange. Yeah, I always thought she was just a real kind of a negative. I got a negative vibe off of her, to use a '60s type phrase.
Let me hit you with a couple of things. Did you know that
Sure.
at the Indica Art Gallery, where they met in London,
Mm-hmm.
where she did that art exhibit, and he came in and met her, that was owned by the Process Church.
I did not know that.
Well, listen
That's
to this.
scary.
Oh yeah, it gets better. Well, hear this one. Do you remember the album Help? Way back for Help. When they're standing in those positions with their arms up in the air and they're making different symbols with their arms and standing in different positions, that's all Aleister Crowley stuff, all those body positions. That's his body.
I didn't know that either, man. That's strange.
Yeah, it goes. There's a lot of stuff there. And also, too, Paul McCartney has come right... Oh, forget it. McCartney was involved with Burroughs in the UK and stuff like that. And talking about playing things backwards and speaking backwards and writing backwards. And McCartney also has said, it's on audio tape, that he believes in magic with a K.
Yeah. So he must be into sex magic then, and therefore he would know about probably.
Oh, yeah.
And,
I believe they all did.
Yeah. I didn't know that. It all, to be honest with you, I kind of just didn't want to know about it for a while. I was like, oh, no, not the Beatles, too. That's one of those things, like, I always considered, I love the music, and I thought they were really positive, good vibes, and they're not. There's other things going on in the background. I'll tell you one thing that was really strange is that album cover that they had to take off, that they plastered over another cover over it because it was kind of raising a lot of eyebrows, and it was the cover where they have the Beatles sitting around in white smocks like a butcher, and they've got meat draped on them, and then they've got these little busted up dolls.
Yeah.
You ever seen that?
I have seen
That's
it.
weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's some real sinister looking, and it was like, what is this all about,
Yeah.
I think some real strange things have gone on in the dark that the general public really never knew about, and it's been going on for a very long time. Nowadays in popular music, the whole Illuminati symbolism thing is big. You've got all these people running around with a pyramid and the all-seeing eye, and they're all covering one eye, and it's always the Eye of Horus type thing, and all kinds of even I think it was Kanye West was running around with a T-shirt that says "Do what thou wilt." Well, Crowley, that was his phrase. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. And I mean, there's just photograph after photograph of this, or And I've seen a couple of videos with Madonna and a couple of other singers that, I mean, it was just one Illuminati symbol after another. And it's like, what's going on here? You people all on the dark side? I guess they are. I mean,
Madonna did a halftime show, a Super Bowl halftime show where she was.
I remember that.
Baphomet.
Yeah, it was like the high priestess.
Yeah.
She's like the high priestess of it all, I guess.
And nobody blinks an eye.
Yeah. That was a very, very strange looking thing. It's almost like a Baphomet type caricature there.
And
I don't know if that's the right word.
No, that's exactly the right word. And it seems like all of these ceremonies at the VMA Awards and the Grammys and the Super Bowls are all these huge ceremonies going on right in front of our faces. And they're doing these occult rituals and ceremonies right in our face.
Well, they say that the people that are involved in that on high levels, and that's one of the things they do. They want to put it in your face. They enjoy that. They get a big laugh out of it, I guess. And I think that's what's going on in the music industry. There's a guy, I guess he's legit, I don't know for sure, but he calls himself the Vigilant Christian, and he has a website by that name, and he has a lot of stories, not stories, but articles on the quote Illuminati, and, sometimes I really don't like to use that. I'd rather use elites because the whole term Illuminati gets battered around a little too much. It's kind of, I'm not sure if it's, really apropos, but he has a lot of articles and photographs of people in the music business and in Hollywood, showing how they're influenced by, spiritual evil. And the symbols, I mean, I saw a video that he made. There must have been like 50, 60 different people doing all these Illuminati things, symbols. Madonna was even wearing a jacket with the pyramid with the all-seeing eye on it, and I think she's totally into that. Now, whether she's a part of the Illuminati, I don't know. Maybe she just works for them.
Listen, Larry, we're down to like the last 4 minutes. Actually, almost 3 minutes.
Okay.
What do you want to leave us with?
Well, I would just like to talk about, the what I see as coming in sometime in the very near future is I believe this country is going to be put into a police state. I think that's coming. I don't know how long it will take, but I think this whole thing with every time you look around, I mean, every week practically, somebody else runs into a group of people and shoots people, and it's just this chaos ensuing. I think there are two reasons for that. One is to traumatize the public, to ratchet up fear, and also I think some of these people, maybe not all, but some of these people may be programmed through an MK Ultra type situation. We know that the CIA has been able to do that, and I think that it's all about instituting gun control to the point of you're not going to have a gun. Forget the Second Amendment. Even the Bush's boy, little pudgy guy, I can't remember his name right now, Karl Rove, has said, "Well, we need to eliminate the Second Amendment. We need to repeal it." Well, I don't think we do. I think people need to keep their guns. Don't get me wrong. I'm not in any groups. I'm not in any militia or anything like that. But I like the idea of having a firearm to protect myself, and I keep one in my house. In fact, I got more than one. And I think the whole idea is an unarmed populace is going to be a whole lot easier to push around, and a whole lot. It's going to be a whole lot of problems.
Well, let me ask you this. I think we would both agree that the arms manufacturers are all part of this elites, these one percenters. If their objective was to keep guns out of our hands, why wouldn't they just stop manufacturing guns?
Yeah. I don't know. I think they're going to get to a point, though, where they're just going to make guns for the military and police. That's all I could figure. I don't know. That's a good thought. I hadn't really
I think they make a lot of
Hope
money.
that went through.
They make a
Don't
lot of
get me
money.
wrong, I'm not a gun freak.
I know. Well, neither am I.
I'm not advocating everybody go out and buy one, but I don't like the idea of being unarmed.
No, me
in the
neither.
type of world we live in.
Larry Hellman, we're down to the last 10 seconds. Thank you so much for being our guest tonight. Great information. And we'll keep in touch, man. We'll have you back when something else comes up, okay?
All right. I appreciate it, man. It's really been kind of fun. So God bless you.
God bless you, brother. Bye.